At my parents' anniversary, they gave my sister a $15,000 Cartier watch in front of everyone, and then posed for a family photo without me. That was the moment I realized I was done being invisible. Golden children get showered with gifts, attention, and love, while the scapegoat child is left out of the picture, literally. Parents think they can play favorites forever, but what they don't realize is that every act of exclusion pushes us closer to walking away. In this story, you'll see how my parents' blatant favoritism reached its cruel peak, how my sister basked in a luxury gift while I stood forgotten, and how I finally decided to rewrite my role in this family drama. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. I share real stories of betrayal, favoritism, and revenge, so you'll never miss a tale that hits close to home. Part 1. Growing Up Invisible. Favoritism doesn't usually start big. It doesn't begin with Cartier watches or staged photographs. It begins with small moments, tiny cuts that seem harmless at first, but over time, they carve you into someone who feels invisible in their own home. That was my life. The golden child versus the ghost my sister, Elise, was the golden child. If she wanted something, she got it. If she failed at something, it was brushed aside as character building. If she so much as breathed the right way, my parents clapped like she just won a medal. Me, I was the ghost. When I brought home perfect grades, the response was, "That's what we expect from you." When I needed new shoes, I was told, "Yours aren't that worn out yet." When I asked for help, they said, "You're independent. You'll figure it out." It wasn't abuse. It wasn't cruelty. It was absence. And in some ways, absence cuts deeper. I remember one birthday party when I turned 10. Elise got a bike for her birthday the month before. Shiny red with a basket and a bell. For mine, I got a store-bought cake and a sweater one size too big. Everyone cooed over her bike. Nobody asked about my sweater. At school, Elise was the one who got picked up early for soccer practice, cheered on by our mom from the sidelines. I walked home alone with my backpack digging into my shoulders. At dinner, Elise's stories filled the table. My words, if I dared to speak, were drowned out by, "That's nice, but did you hear what Elise did today?" By the time we were teenagers, the divide was undeniable. Elise had her own room redecorated twice, new clothes every season, and a car when she turned 16. I drove that same car later, after she got a new one, and I inherited her scratched, dented hand-me-down. I didn't fight it. Not because I didn't care, but because fighting would have been pointless. Every attempt to call it out was dismissed as jealousy. Why can't you be happy for your sister? Don't be so dramatic. We love you both equally. Widows that never matched the reality. When my parents' 30th anniversary approached, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would be different. 30 years of marriage was a milestone. Surely it would be about them, not Elise. They rented a beautiful hall, invited relatives and friends, ordered gourmet catering, hired a professional photographer. Everything looked grand, polished, perfect. I showed up in my best clothes, trying to believe I belonged. And for a while, it felt true. I mingled. I laughed with cousins. I helped set up decorations. I even caught my mom smiling at me. A rare flash of warmth that made me think, maybe tonight I won't be invisible. But deep down, I should have known better. Because patterns don't vanish overnight. They only grow bolder. And that night, my parents' favoritism wasn't hidden in subtle comments or quiet neglect. That night it was displayed in Cartier gold. Part 2. The Anniversary Night. The anniversary celebration looked like something out of a glossy magazine. The hall was lit by golden chandeliers, tables dressed in white linens with centerpieces of roses and flickering candles. A string quartet played softly near the stage, while relatives sipped champagne and gossiped about old family stories. Everyone was dressed their best, smiling for photos, clinking glasses. On the surface, it was perfect. But beneath the sparkle, I felt that familiar weight. The one that always came when I was around my parents and Elise. That gnawing suspicion that no matter what I did, I would never be more than background. Midway through the evening, my father tapped his glass. The music softened, the conversations quieted, and all eyes turned to him. He stood tall, a proud smile on his face, holding a small, elegant Cartier box in his hands. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. 30 years of marriage is no small thing. We've built a life, a family, and memories together. And while tonight is about us, it's also about the people we're proud of. My stomach tightened. I knew where this was going. He turned to Elise, his voice warm. "Our daughter has been a light in our lives, always graceful, always making us proud." He opened the box with a dramatic flourish. Inside was a gleaming Cartier watch, the kind you see in jewelry ads, the kind that costs more than some people's. Cars. The crowd gasped. Relatives clapped. Elise covered her mouth in feigned surprise, her eyes sparkling as she leaned forward to hug them. "Oh my God, thank you," she squealed, slipping the watch onto her wrist. The diamonds around the face caught the chandelier light, scattering reflections across the room. Cameras flashed. The photographer snapped picture after picture. My parents beamed like they'd just crowned a queen. And me? I sat there, frozen, my smile stiff, my hands clenched under the table. No one looked at me. No one noticed me. It was like I wasn't even there. I thought about all the things I had accomplished quietly. The scholarships I earned, the jobs I worked to support myself, the stability I created without a single cent of help. None of that had ever earned applause. None of it had ever earned a gift. But Elise's existence, her simple, shining existence, was enough for a $15,000 Cartier watch and a round of applause from the entire room. Then the photographer clapped his hands. "Let's get a family. Photo! Parents with their children!" I stood, smoothing my shirt, trying to shake off the sting. Maybe this was my chance to at least be seen, to stand beside them in a picture, proof that I existed too. But as I stepped forward, my mother held up a hand. "Oh, we'll just do this one with Elise," she said lightly. "We'll get you in later." My breath caught. I froze mid-step. I looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to say something, to insist I be included. But nobody did. The photographer adjusted his lens. Elise stood between my parents, the Cartier watch glittering as she wrapped her arms around them. "Perfect," he said. The flash went off. A perfect family photo. Without me. I forced a small smile, nodded like it didn't matter, and returned to my chair. I sipped from my glass of champagne, though it tasted bitter in my mouth. Inside, though, I felt hollow. That photo wasn't just a picture. It was the story of my life in one frame. My parents and Elise in the spotlight. Me cut out of it completely. And as much as it hurt, it also gave me something I hadn't had before. Clarity. Because at that moment, I realized I didn't want to fight for space in a frame that was never meant to include me. Part 3. The aftermath of the party. The moment that camera flash went off, something inside me shifted. I sat there at the round table, surrounded by clinking glasses and laughter. Yet I felt like I had been sealed inside a glass box, visible to all, but unheard, untouched, and unwanted. It's one thing to be overlooked in private. It's another to be erased in public, in front of relatives, family friends, and a photographer paid to capture memories. That night, my parents didn't just exclude me from a photo. They made it clear to everyone in the room where I stood, in their story, outside the frame. After the photo, the celebrations continued like nothing had happened. Music resumed, waiters brought out champagne refills, and the dance floor filled with relatives. I stayed at my table, swirling the bubbles in my glass, trying to keep my face neutral. Relatives came up to me, not to comfort me, but to gush. About Elise! She looked stunning with that Cartier watch, one aunt said, clasping my hand like I'd agree. "She's always been so special," another whispered proudly. Even my uncle chuckled. "Guess the golden girl shines brighter than ever, huh?" They meant no harm, but their words cut deeper than silence. Elise floated through the room like a queen, her new watch glinting with every gesture. She held her wrist up deliberately in photos, laughed louder than usual, basked in the attention. Every time I caught my parents' eyes, they looked at her, never me. Their pride wasn't subtle. It radiated off them like stage lights. I wanted to slip out the door, vanish into the night. But I stayed. Not for them, not for Elise. For me, to remind myself that I could survive even this. Later, the photographer called for extended family photos. Cousins, uncles, aunts. This time, I was included. I stood on the edge of the frame, smiling politely while Elise beamed in the center, watch flashing. The photographer kept giving instructions. "Elise, tilt your wrist. Yes, show the watch." "Parents, pull Elise closer." It didn't matter how many relatives joined the frame. Elise was always in the middle. I was always on the fringe. Conversations I overheard. At one point, I overheard two relatives talking near the buffet table. "It's strange," one whispered. "Why didn't they include both kids in the main photo?" The other shrugged. "They've always been like that. You know who the favorite is." They didn't know I was behind them. I didn't interrupt. Their words confirmed what I had felt my entire life. The favoritism wasn't just visible to me. It was visible to everyone. When the party ended, Elise left with my parents, laughing, her Cartier box tucked safely under her arm. They didn't offer me a ride. They didn't even ask if I got home safely. So I drove myself, headlights cutting. Through the dark streets, the hum of the engine the only sound in the silence of my car. I replayed the night in my head. The watch, the applause, the photo without me. Each memory twisted tighter around my chest. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew something for certain. I was done pretending. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A family group chat notification. Photos from the party filled the screen. Elise and my parents smiling, her watch shining, champagne glasses raised. Then, the family photo. The one without me. It was posted with the caption, "Our perfect night. So grateful for our beautiful family." I stared at the image. Perfect night. Beautiful family. A photo where I didn't exist. For years, I had told myself to swallow the hurt, to be patient, to keep trying for their love. But that picture was my answer. If they couldn't make space for me in a single photo, then I no longer needed to fight for space in their lives. I didn't respond to the group chat. I didn't like the photo, didn't comment, didn't add a smiley face. Instead, I opened a box in my closet filled with years of evidence of my role. Forgotten birthday cards, second-hand gifts, photos where I stood in the background, never the center. I sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through them. Each one reminded me of the same truth. My parents had chosen their golden child long ago, and if that's the family portrait they wanted, so be it. Because the next time a camera flash went off, I wouldn't be standing awkwardly on the sidelines, waiting for a turn that never came. I would no longer be part of the frame at all. Part 4, drawing the line. After that night, I didn't explode. I didn't scream at anyone. I didn't start family drama in the group chat. Instead, I went quiet. Not the quiet of surrender, the quiet of strategy. The kind of silence that doesn't mean I give up, but I see you and I'm done playing. Withdrawing from the group chat kept buzzing in the days after the anniversary. My mother posted photo after photo of Elise wearing the Cartier watch. Elise smiling at brunch, Elise posing with relatives, Elise holding up her wrist like a trophy. Each caption oozed with pride. Our star, our shining girl. I didn't react. No hearts, no comments, no emojis, just silence. It didn't go unnoticed. After a week, my sister texted me privately. "Why are you being so cold? Mom and Dad just wanted to celebrate me. Why can't you be happy for once?" I stared at her message for a long time, then locked my phone without replying. some things. You don't deserve answers. The relatives' curiosity, relatives began calling. An aunt asked gently, "Honey, you okay? You've been quiet." A cousin teased, "You jealous about the watch?" I smiled tightly into the phone. "No, just busy." But they knew. They all knew. The favoritism had been obvious for years. The only difference now was that I was no longer pretending it didn't exist. My parents. Notice. Eventually, my parents noticed too. My father called one evening, his tone clipped. "Why haven't you been coming by? Your mother says you're being distant." I took a deep breath. "I've been reflecting on the photo." Silence. Then his voice sharpened. "Don't be dramatic. It was just a picture. Just a picture." I almost laughed. If it was just a picture, why hadn't I been in it? Why had Elise been the centerpiece, the watch gleaming while I was told to join later? A later that never came. "Pictures tell the truth," I said calmly. "That photo told me exactly what I needed to know," he huffed. "We love you both equally." I let the words hang there, stale and empty. For the first time in my life, I didn't argue. I didn't beg for proof. I just said, "I don't believe you," and I hung up. The shift, that was the turning point. I stopped showing up for family dinners. I stopped answering texts unless they were absolutely necessary. When Elise posted another round of photos, I didn't look. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't noisy. It was quiet, deliberate absence, and that quiet made more noise than shouting ever could. Relatives started whispering. At gatherings I skipped, I heard later from cousins. "Why wasn't she there? Is something going on?" She seemed upset at the anniversary. Of course I was upset, but I didn't feed the gossip. Let them speculate. Let them guess. I didn't owe explanations anymore. Elise tried again, this time with a mix of arrogance and guilt-tripping. She sent me a photo of the Cartier watch with the caption, "Still mad. You're making this about you when it's not." I stared at the message, then calmly deleted it. Because here's the truth. It wasn't about me. It was about them. About my parents choosing her again and again, until one night it became undeniable. I wasn't mad. I was done. As I pulled away from them, I built something new. Peace. Evenings no longer meant waiting for a call that never came. Weekends no longer meant driving across town to sit quietly at a table while Elise held court. I filled my time with people who wanted me around, with hobbies I had neglected, with rest I hadn't given myself permission to take. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. The funny thing about drawing boundaries is how quickly it unsettles those who benefited from your lack of them. My mother texted, "You should come to dinner. We miss you." I replied, "You didn't miss me in the photo." She didn't respond. My father called again, this time softer. "You're taking this too far. Families have misunderstandings." "Families don't erase each other from milestones," I said. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a message. And I heard it loud and clear. His sigh carried years of entitlement, the disbelief that I dared to stand firm. I realized then that I didn't need to yell, didn't need to fight for acknowledgement. My absence was louder than anything I could say. They had excluded me from one photo. Now I was excluding myself from the rest of their story. And for once, I wasn't the one losing something. They were. Part 5. The Fallout. When you stop playing your assigned role in a family dynamic, the whole stage shifts. I had always been the ghost, present but ignored, available but uncelebrated. The one who made the photo look balanced without ever being centered in it. But once I withdrew, the balance broke, and everyone noticed. The gossip machine. It started small. At brunches and dinners I skipped, cousins began asking questions. "Where's she? Why isn't she here? Did something happen at the anniversary?" My parents waved it off at first. "Oh, she's just busy." But busy only works once or twice. By the third, fourth, fifth absence, people stopped buying it. An aunt cornered Elise at a family gathering. I heard about it later. She seemed upset at the party. "Did you two fight?" Elise apparently scoffed. "She's just jealous. Always has been." But gossip spreads differently when it has evidence. And everyone remembered that photo, the one where I was missing. The uneasy questions. One evening, a cousin called me privately. I don't mean to stir things up, but "Why weren't you in the anniversary photo?" I hesitated, then said the truth. "Because my parents told me it was just Elise's moment. They said I could join later." There was silence on the line, then a sharp intake of breath. "That's awful." I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. The truth carried its own weight, and once the truth slips into a family's bloodstream, it doesn't go away. It circulates, Elise's tarnished spotlight at first. Elise loved the attention, She wore the Cartier watch to every family gathering, subtly adjusting her wrist so the diamonds caught the light. Relatives complimented her. "So beautiful, so elegant." But I noticed the shift in tone. Compliments became tinged with something else. Curiosity. Doubt. Because the more she flaunted, the more obvious the absence beside her became. It's easy to shine when no one notices the shadow. But when the shadow walks away, suddenly the light feels too harsh, too forced. My parents' realization. My parents too began to feel the cost. For years, I had been the steady one, the one who showed up early to help set tables, who drove relatives home, who remembered birthdays without being reminded. Without me, the cracks showed. At a cousin's baby shower, no one helped my mother carry gifts to the car. At a holiday dinner, my father scrambled to organize photos because I wasn't there to remind the photographer. Little things maybe, but little things add up. And for the first time, they realized what my presence had quietly provided. Their attempts. The texts began. "We miss you at Sunday dinner. Your sister asked about you. Are you still upset about the photo? Don't let one small thing ruin the family bond. One small thing." As if the photo was isolated. As if it wasn't the culmination of years of being left out, dismissed, and erased. I didn't reply. The relatives shift. Interestingly, relatives started reaching out to me more. A cousin invited me for coffee saying, "I always admired how independent you are." An uncle sent me a message after seeing Elise's watch posts. "She's spoiled. You didn't deserve that." Slowly, the narrative began to change. I wasn't the jealous ghost anymore. I was the one who had been wronged, and who was now strong enough to step away. Elise's frustration. Elise noticed. She texted me late one night. "You're making me look bad. People are saying stuff because you're being dramatic. Just get over it." I stared at the message for a long time before replying with a single sentence. "I didn't make you look bad. Mom and Dad did." No emojis, no explanations, just the truth. She didn't respond. The quiet consequence. Here's the thing about exclusion. When people push you out of the frame, they think they've erased you. But really, they've erased themselves from your future. By excluding me from that photo, my parents thought they were protecting a perfect image. Instead, they cracked it. And now every family photo they took without me told a louder story than any watch ever could. That sometimes the child who's invisible isn't gone because they're forgotten. They're gone because they chose to leave. Part 6. Independence. When I stopped chasing their approval, I discovered something I had been missing for years. Space. Space to breathe. Space to live on my own terms. Space to finally see that being excluded wasn't the end of the world. It was the start of my freedom. For years, I had lived in the shadow of waiting. Waiting for my parents to notice me. Waiting for Elise to stop being the favorite. Waiting for my turn to matter. But after the anniversary, I stopped waiting. I turned. My phone face down during family group chats. I let calls go to voicemail. And, for the first time, my evenings weren't spent rehearsing ways to prove I was worth a place in their frame. My evenings became mine. At first, the silence was heavy. The absence of constant comparison left a hollow echo in my chest. But slowly, I began filling that silence with things that actually mattered. I joined a local book club, where people asked about my opinions and actually listened. I started hiking again, feeling the burn in my legs as proof that I was moving forward, one step at a time. I signed up for a cooking class where strangers became friends over laughter and failed soufflés. Each new connection reminded me, I wasn't invisible everywhere. I wasn't invisible to people who wanted me around. Watching from afar. Meanwhile, Elise and my parents carried on their perfect picture act. Social media was filled with photos of family dinners. Elise's wrist always, front and center, the Cartier watch catching the light. The captions read, "Our everything. Our pride and joy." But something was missing in those photos. Me and relatives noticed. The comments under those posts grew sharper. Where's the other one? Didn't she come? It doesn't feel complete without her. The absence they once ignored was now unavoidable. More and more relatives began reaching out privately. "You don't deserve this treatment," one cousin told me over coffee. "I've seen it for years." An aunt admitted, shaking her head. "They always favored Elise. It's shameful." Some even apologized for staying silent. "We should have said something sooner. We saw it too." Their words didn't erase the years of being overlooked, but they confirmed something important. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the favoritism. It was real. It was visible. And now, other people were finally saying it out loud. My parents noticed the shift too. My father called again, his voice softer this time. "You don't have to stay away. We can talk about it." My mother sent messages. "Family isn't perfect. Don't hold grudges. Grudges. That's what they called my boundaries." I didn't lash out. I didn't argue. I just replied once. "I'm not holding a grudge. I'm holding myself." That was the last message I sent for a long while. Elise, too, started to falter. Without me as a contrast, her spotlight felt too bright, too exposed. At a family dinner I skipped, I heard later she snapped at a relative who asked, "Where's your sibling? Things feel different without them." Her response? "Why does everyone care so much about them now? They've always been jealous." That defensiveness told me everything. The golden child glow was dimming, not because of me, but because I was no longer there to make her shine brighter by comparison. While their world cracked, mine expanded. I saved money instead of spending it on gifts for people who didn't appreciate me. I traveled with friends who made space for me in every photo. I decorated my apartment with things I loved, not with hand-me-downs chosen by others. Every small act of independence was like rewriting my story. I was no longer the ghost in the background. I was the author of my own frame. Here's what I learned. You don't have to burn bridges to walk away. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply refusing to show up when people expect you to. My parents thought they could erase me from a photo and still rely on me to fill the empty roles, the helper, the organizer, the invisible backbone. But I stepped away, and in my absence, they were left holding their perfect picture, one that now looked emptier than ever. And for me, my life looked fuller than it ever had. When I think back to that anniversary night, I don't see chandeliers or champagne or roses. I see a flash, a camera flash that captured a family photo, without me. That single image told me more than 3 decades of words ever could. Favoritism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle. A glance here, a shrug there. One child praised, the other brushed aside. But over time, those quiet choices build into something undeniable. For my parents, it built into a Cartier watch on my sister's wrist. It built into applause and admiration showered on her while I sat invisible. And finally, it built into a photograph where they didn't even bother to include me. They didn't just forget me that night. They revealed the truth. I had never been in the frame to begin with. By excluding me, my parents thought they were protecting their perfect family image, but all they did was expose the cracks. Because here's the irony of erasure. When you push someone out of the picture, you don't actually erase them. You highlight their absence. Now, every photo they post, every family gathering they host, people ask the same question. Where are you? And the silence that follows speaks louder than any caption ever could. Walking away didn't mean losing family. It meant gaining myself. I stopped chasing a place in a frame that was never meant to include me. I stopped waiting for approval that was never going to come. Instead, I built my own frames. Photos filled with friends who choose me. Moments where I am not just present, but valued. A life where I am not the ghost, but the center of my own story. And that life is worth more than any Cartier watch. The lesson for Elise is for my sister. She still has the watch. She still has the spotlight. But I've noticed something in her smile. A tightness, a defensiveness. Because deep down, even she knows. Her shine was always propped up by my shadow. And without me there, without the contrast, the light feels harsher, lonelier. Favoritism isn't a crown, it's a cage. One day she'll realize that. The lesson for me, but my lesson is different. I learned that being excluded can be painful, but it can also be freeing. Because once you stop fighting to be in someone else's picture, you realize you can take your own. And in those pictures, you don't have to tilt your wrist just right, or wait to be called, or smile through the sting of being ignored. In those pictures, you are exactly where you belong. So if you've ever been erased, overlooked, or cut out of the frame, remember this: you don't need to fight for a place in someone else's photo. You don't need to beg to be seen. You don't need to wait for a Cartier watch to prove your worth. You can step out of their picture and build your own. Because the sweetest revenge isn't shouting, or sulking, or demanding to be included. The sweetest revenge is choosing yourself and filling your own frame with people who never forget to invite you in.